theyeshiva.net.
I would like to once again welcome all of you to this special Rayim Appreciation Day. There are no words. We feel honored that we were able to have this very, very special guest, Rabbi Jacobson, to talk to us today. We're talking about, I don't think there's any need for any introduction, but we're talking about I think a world-renowned speaker would be an understatement. And hopefully his words will come across and benefit all of you, I'd say for years to come, because that's usually the impression of his drushas. So, Rabbi Jacobson.
A few days ago, Rabbi Yisrael Henich was talking to me about the event, and he said, I would really want that you should begin speaking 11:30 in the morning. But it's 45 minutes. We argued about it. I don't know we argued about it. I just told you I can't. So we weren't really, I said, I can't. He said, well, you have a shiur? Like a good Jew, he wanted to know what I'm doing in the morning, Is it breakfast? Is it yoga? Is it Pilates? Is it a gym? Am I going to therapy? Am I what? I told him I can't. I could leave my house 11:30. He said, okay, we'll change things around. You'll speak 12:15. So I arranged, taxi should be there 11:25, so I should be able to leave 11:30 and start speaking 12:15. And then I got a message from him as I'm ready to leave, and he says, no rush. When an organizer writes no rush, it's very, very strange. Like what's happening? In fact, the last time I remember that, I had actually an event, and the organizer also told me, I said, I'm sorry, there's traffic, I'm going to be a few minutes late, and the organizer told me no rush. That was so interesting because usually they're frantic, they're stressed, they're anxious. And when I came to that event, only one person showed up to the lecture. This is many years ago, one person. Now, the only thing that's worse than nobody showing up is one person showing up. If nobody shows up, you could say, Trump came. You could say everybody came. But if one person shows up, it's tsaras. So then I understood why he told me no rush. So I'm wondering, why is he telling me no rush? He says, we're running a few minutes late. Then I heard, of course, about what happened in Monroe, that the bus wanted everybody should stay home today with their kids and, spend time and have a beautiful, beautiful day. So everything worked out just perfectly. And I guess a speech 11:30 in the morning would have been more me speaking to myself, which is a good thing. But I do plenty of that, and it's probably not what Rayim wants. Anyway, the bottom line is, sometimes we get stressed about things because it's not working out exactly the way it's supposed to work out, but it's really working out exactly the way it's supposed to work out. So I'm very grateful to be here, and thank you, my dear friend, Rabbi Yisrael Henich, for the privilege and the schus and the invitation to address such a significant community, I would say, those who lead this amazing organization that really extends itself day in, day out, day and night, for thousands and thousands of young women and men, children and teens, and young and old who suffer from all of the different types of disabilities, and you're there for them creating Rayim, which really means friendship. Now I was just thinking about the name Rayim. I also heard a very interesting, okay, we'll get to that soon, but I was just thinking about the word Rayim. Everybody knows Rayim means friends, right? V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. It's probably one of the most famous psukim. Rabbi Akiva says, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. You should love reyacha, which means your friend, and that includes every Jew who is a friend, reyacha. We speak about the bracha, we say, Asher bara sasim v'simcha gila rina ditza v'chedva ava v'achva shalom v'reyus. Reyus means friendship. Reya in Tanakh means a friend. But it's interesting. The word Reya is made up of two letters, or Rayim, which is Reish Ayin, which also stands for a word which means Ra, which is our word for evil, negativity. So how did these two meanings come together? Reya is your friend, and Ra is also bad. It's the opposite of friendship. You want to disassociate from negativity. Even Rayim is friends, But you also have Rayim. Rayim means bad. Ma'at v'Rayim hayu yimei shnei chaya. It's exactly the same letters, Reish, Ayin, Yud, Mem. So I was thinking about this. And I don't know, a thought popped into my head. Maybe I saw it somewhere, maybe I didn't. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But I don't know, it touched me, so I'm going to share it with you. And I think it's relevant to your work. The word Reish, Ayin, Ra, we have in Koheles 4 times. 4 times Shlomo Melech writes the words Hevel u'Re'us Ruach. Re'us. What's Re'us Ruach? So Rashi says Re'us Ruach means Shever Ruach, a broken spirit. There's another meaning in Reya, and that is brokenness. In Gemara we have an expression called Kaisel Ra'ua, a broken wall, a flimsy wall, a shaky wall. Something that's not solid, it's fragmented, it's splintered, it's broken, is called Re'us. Tiroyim b'shevet barzel, break them, something that's broken. And then I realized, that's exactly where the 2 words come together. Because in life, everyone and everything is broken. Everybody has moments of loneliness. Send them my regards. Loneliness, separateness, talking about friendship, fragmentation. It's what I do with that. What do I do with that? Either my fragmentation and loneliness causes me to seek unity and friendship, and that's Rayim, that's V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, or I turn my loneliness into a reality that substitutes friendship, and that's the source of all negativity. The source of all negativity is when my brokenness, instead of leading me to a deeper wholeness, to deeper relationships, to deeper connection, to deeper authenticity, my loneliness and brokenness takes me further into loneliness, further into solitariness, further into separation. So in this world, as the soul comes into the body, we feel separate. The soul on its own is a chelik elokamimal. It's part of Hashem who's infinite. But as we come into a body, into an animal consciousness, we feel separateness. We don't feel that we're one of infinite, one with infinity. What do I do with that separateness? Ra, evil, in its source, is the beginning of the feeling of separateness. And when I start feeling separate, instead of that separateness motivating me, inspiring me to seek out the wholeness that I'm searching for, I turn the separateness into a philosophy. And now my loneliness becomes a substitute for relationships. And when it becomes a substitute for relationships, this is when the person doesn't know who they are anymore. And instead of my being a machzis hashekel, a half a shekel, that seeks the other half, I turn my half a shekel into a whole shekel. And now I need to create a life out of separateness, not of friendship, not of oneness. It's like in marriages. You know, what's a successful marriage? What's a miserable marriage? A successful marriage is when a husband and a wife understand that everybody is vulnerable. And that's why we need each other. We need each other to heal. We need each other to help each other. We need each other to be able to lean into each other. And that's the beauty of a relationship. I can't ask the other person to do my work and to fill my void. My soul has to fill my void. But in my vulnerability, I could really connect to another person authentically. Or I turn my loneliness and fragmentation and separation into a self-contained philosophy, and I become more alone and more broken and more separate. One of the most powerful stories that I heard in my life was from my brother who experienced this. And he shared this with me once. He used to give a class every single week for many years in Manhattan for secular Jews. And he said many years ago, a fellow showed up at one of his classes. It was, I think, a Wednesday evening. And when the person walked into the room, he could see that the person suffered from disability. And he sat there every week. He came for 6 months and he never said a word or introduced himself. After 6 months, he finally mustered the courage. And after the class was finished, he came over to my brother and he introduced himself. And he right away saw that he had a speech impediment and his motor skills were compromised. And he had various other physiological challenges. And the person shared with my brother that he was born with a rare neurological condition and disease that affected many parts of his development, including his motor skills, his movement, his speech, and other factors in his life. And he shared his struggles. He also shared that his parents are Jewish. They live in Manhattan. They're very wealthy, extremely affluent, and they're very active in the community. They're social butterflies. They're involved in all types of organizations and activities. So they're always going to dinners and events. They're very part of a Jewish social scene, secular Jewish social scene in the city. And they realized, the doctor shared with his mother and his father after he was born, he was almost 30 years old at the time, he was like 29 or 30, that this kid has serious health challenges, and it's going to change their entire life, because it's going to be an incessant burden. And they decided at that moment that they're giving him up. They're not taking him home. And they gave him up to a place that would take care of him. And he told my brother, and I never saw my parents. I never met them. He's 30 years old. This is in Manhattan. They're not living in Antarctica. They're both living in Manhattan. He never saw them, but his father sends him a check every month and always supported him and helped him out, that he has all his needs. My brother was shocked. Why would they never want to see you? They never wanted to create an emotional connection to be able to feel sad. So they never saw him and he never saw them. Since his birth, they gave him up and that was it. My brother thought this was the weirdest story he ever heard, or one of the weirdest stories he ever heard. So he decided, like a good Jew, you mix into other people's business. It's called Kol Yisrael Arayvim Zeh B'Zeh, right? You also do that once in a while. So he decides he's going to call up the fellow. He gets the name. It wasn't hard. He looks up the name, and he calls up the father of this person. And the father answers the phone. It's a little bit of, it's not the most comfortable call. What is he going to say? And he's like, hi, my name is Simon Jacobson. I give a class in Manhattan, and I had the privilege of meeting your son a little while ago. And I want to tell you that he's an amazing young man. And I really think, and before he can finish a sentence, boom! And my brother thinks, oh, it just got disconnected. So he calls back, which I admire him for that, because I would have known it didn't get disconnected. Somebody disconnected, but he calls back, and the person tells him, haven't you got the message? I do not want to talk to you. Boom. And that was it. My brother said it was very sad, because actually talking to this boy was inspiring, because there was such a halo of light around him. Yes, he had many physical challenges, but emotionally and spiritually there was a purity in him. Because he had all of these challenges, he really had to fight for his soul. Life was not given to him. Blessings in life were not given to him on a golden platter. Like whatever he had, he owned, and there was a beauty and a menschlichkeit and a sensitivity and a purity and an innocence in him that he fought for. His soul was radiant as much as his body was limited. And he didn't know what to do. So he waited some time and he decided to call the mother. A Yiddish mama is a sach gringe wie a Yiddish tate amo. So he calls the mother. And the mother listens. And my brother says, let me tell you something. If you don't mind putting your phones on vibrate, please, thank you. I don't want to tell you on off, because I don't know who's going to call you. Could be the President of America, but whatever, at least on vibrate. So what happens is he tells the mother, he says, I want to tell you something. I meet a lot of people. There are orphans who don't have parents. And whenever anybody says, I want to share with you a story about your mother, your father, I knew your parents, they so eagerly swallow it up. They want any piece of information about the parents they didn't know. There are kids who are adopted. And for the rest of their life, they search for their biological father and mother, because everybody wants to know where they come from. Da me ayin basa. From who comes to? Where do you come from? I want to know who my father was, who my mother is, who my grandparents are. It's like an inherent need of a person to know where I come from. I wasn't just hatched from a chicken, from an egg, or from a chicken. And here you have a child who's living in the same city like you. He's 30 years old. Don't you think he deserves to know who he comes from? He's not even asking to go home. He just wants to meet you. And don't you want to meet him? Don't you want to see this beautiful person? The mother starts sobbing. And she says, we are not about to rethink a decision we made 30 years ago. Thank you. Boom. He calls back. I give him credit. She says, you have to take this up with my husband. Obviously, he was the one who made the decision. So he waits some time and he calls up the husband. And he gives him a good Jewish guilt trip. What's the problem? You're going to meet him for a few minutes. What's going to happen? He's going to go back to his institution where he stays. He's going to go back to his work. He's not moving into your house. You could still go to your dinners. You're not becoming his therapist. You're not becoming his doctor. What's the issue? And the father finally says, let me think about it. Ooh. He gets back to him. The father agreed. He gave him a Sunday as long as you come with him. It was almost like they're doing my brother a favor to meet their son. It's weird, surreal. But okay, he went with it. I'll come. I guess he wanted some buffer zone. My brother picks up this boy and goes to the parents' home. They lived in a penthouse. They live in a penthouse near Central Park in Manhattan. He never knew there could be such a spacious apartment in Manhattan. Usually in Manhattan, for a garage, you pay $9 million, just to rent it. It was amazing. He realized that they have challah for Shabbos and a few extra dollars in the bank account too. It was so impressive. It was a beautiful view of the park, kind of Manhattan and the skyscrapers. And he comes in with this boy, and they sit down, and it's the first time the parents saw their child. But nobody made eye contact. They sat down, there was chocolate and nuts on the table. They start talking about the weather, right? New York, you can always talk about the crazy weather. No global warming in our part of town. They start talking about Sunday afternoon, you talk about Sunday football. They talk about this and that, and it's going nowhere. So after 10 minutes, my brother realized he really has to be the shadchan and intervene. And he says, okay, it's beautiful. We could talk about the weather. It's interesting weather. And politics is certainly interesting in America, certainly these days. But we know why we're here. I've met your son a while ago. I was blown away by his personality and his purity and his sincerity, and I thought it would be a beautiful thing for the parents to meet the child and for the child to meet the parents. And here you are. And my brother tells me, I kid you not, this boy who had a speech impediment, at this point he was 30 years old or 31 years old, looks at his mother and he looks at his father for the first time in his life. He looked at them when he was 2-3 days old, but the first time he remembered. And he said he looked at them and he started to speak. It was obvious that these words were not coming out easy from his mouth. He had to really master them. But these were his words. He couldn't say mommy, and he couldn't say tati. So he said mama, mama. He couldn't say ma. He couldn't say ma. So he said mama, and he couldn't say pop. So he said mama, papa, mama, papa. As you know, I am not perfect. But mama and papa, so are you. You're also not perfect. Mama, Papa, I have forgiven you for being imperfect. And I hope one day you'll be able to forgive me for being imperfect. It's quiet. You could cut the electricity with a knife until the mother just burst out crying. All of the latent, dormant emotions of a mother. V'nafshay kshura b'nafshay came out. She went over to her son and hugged him for a few minutes. And even the father, who was one tough cookie, also melted. And he went over and hugged his son. And at that point, my brother told me I felt like a shadchan after the chuppah. You know, a shadchan is very good till the chuppah. You know, mission accomplished, get out. And he said, I think I should leave now. And he left the house. The family was reunited. Those penetrating words of this young man, of this young soul, really captured for me that meaning of the word Rayim, friendship, as an expression of brokenness. Father and mother, I'm not perfect, but you're also not perfect. I forgave you for being imperfect. Will you ever forgive me for being imperfect? And the truth is, this kid nailed it. Because let's be honest, how many parents don't forgive their children for being imperfect? We don't say it. But deep down, I wanted you to be that nachas machine. You were supposed to be hatched, matched, and dispatched. Call me for Wachnacht, call me for the Abschernish, call me for the Bar Mitzvah. I'll even pay for half the Bar Mitzvah. Yeah, that's a good one. Hatched, matched, dispatched. Next, conveyor belt, yeshiva, whatever, Call me before the chuppah. But it doesn't always turn out that way. Spiritually, physically, socially, mentally. And it's sometimes hard, even for loving parents. Of course I love my children, but I love you as a perfect child. But that's not love. That's insecurity, it's fear. Friendship, Rayim, only comes from the awareness of brokenness. Who's not broken? Who's not vulnerable? The only people who are perfect are the people who know how imperfect they are. There was a Jewish singer who once said, when I was young, I worshiped perfection. Today, I search for anything that has a crack inside, because it's the cracks that allow the light to come in. It's the imperfection that allows the light to come in. Just a few moments ago, I was schmoozing with Rabbi Kreuz, with Rabbi Yisrael Henech, our dear CEO of Rayim, and he shared with me an amazing Hasidic teaching that comes from the Degel Machane Ephraim, who was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. And with today's technology, sitting on the chair, I actually looked it up. Where is he? He's here? Hi, Yishikoyach. Degel Machane Parshas Ba'aloischa. The Gemara says in Tractate Baba Metzia, page 59, Rava, one of the greatest Talmudic sages, told the people of Mechuzah. Mechuzah is a city in Babylonia, Iraq. He said, Oikiru lineshaychu, kadesha tisatru. Respect your wives so that you become wealthy. You could say this when you come home in my name, or actually in the name of Rava. It's not in mine, in the name of Rava. Baba Metzia 59, your husband can look it up. Remember the page number, Daf Nun Tes. Rava, who was one of the greatest sages of all times, he turns to the people of Mechuzah, to the men. Obviously, he was giving them a lecture, a shir, and he said, you go home, respect, oikiru, respect, show honor, show homage, pay tribute to your wives, because that's the only way you'll become wealthy. And what he meant was that all the blessings in people's lives comes from a good relationship with their spouses. So the more you respect your wife and cherish her, the more you'll be blessed, which is a beautiful, beautiful statement. The Degel Machane Ephraim says, but there's a deeper interpretation here. The word in Hebrew for women and Aramaic for your wives is oikiru lineshaychu, from the word isha, nashim. But the word neshaychu has another meaning, just like the word reya, the opposite meaning. And in fact, we're just learning about it. Yosef had a son, Menashe. Why did he name him Menashe? So the pasuk says in Miketz, ki nashani Elokim es kol amoli ves kol beis avi. Hashem helped me forget all my hardship and suffering in the house of my father. He was kidnapped, he was abused, he was thrown into a pit, he was sold as a slave. He went through craziness by his own family. Hashem helped me forget. Hashem helped me move on. I can marry. He had a family. He married Asnas. They built a new life together. Remember, Asnas, according to the Medrash, was also abandoned by the family. Asnas was Dinah's daughter. As a result of her relationship with Shechem, she became pregnant with Asnas, and they sent her to Mitzrayim. So these are two people from the family of Yaakov, both abandoned by the family. So they understood each other. There's nothing like a husband understanding his wife's trauma and a woman understanding her husband's trauma, and then creating space for the other person's healing process. And together, imagine, they can create a family, and together they looked at this boy Menashe and they said, Hashem helped us move on, recreate a new life. Later he'll have a second son, Ephraim. So the word neshaychu means your wives, but it also means your forgetfulness. Oikiru l'neshaychu. Cherish your moments of forgetfulness. Cherish your moments of weakness, when you forget who you are, when you're broken, when you're impoverished, because that is how you'll become wealthy. And the Degel Machne Ephraim says, so many people spend so much time running away from their imperfections, running away from their flaws, running away from their vulnerability, because it's painful. So we create a facade. How painful, how much energy I have to invest in building a facade and another facade and another facade. And God forbid anybody figures out how vulnerable I am. God forbid to be authentic. So everybody walks around with facades. And sometimes, we live in communities and families, and there's so much pressure. Wow. He says, that's not where you get wealthy. That's not where you really grow. You grow a kirul in a shaychu. Cherish those moments where I fail and I fall and I learn about my vulnerabilities and imperfections, because it's from there that you learn most about yourself. You learn what your avodah is, what your shlichus is, what your mission is, why you came down to the world. That's where we gain our truest wealth. And then I realized that the Degel Machne Ephraim is not really contradicting the literal interpretation, because what does it really mean to cherish your wife? Your wife is the one, the men will know this, those who are married, right? Your wife is the one who will show a mirror to your face and show you how imperfect you are. I can go around the world and give speeches and get standing ovations, and it's nice, right? But when I come home, there's no speech and there's no standing ovation. It's like, you're late. You forgot the wine again. You were supposed to bring it. There was one thing I asked you today. You forgot. I just got a standing ovation. I don't care if you got a standing ovation. Right? A few months ago, Senator Joseph Lieberman passed away. Remember Senator Lieberman? He was a senator of Connecticut. He was a fine Jew. So they always told a story about him. You remember, some of you remember, he ran to become the vice president on the ticket of Al Gore. Al Gore wanted to be president, and he would be the vice president. He would be the first Jewish Orthodox. He was a Shomer Shabbos. He was a Shomer Torah Mitzvahs. He would be the first Jewish and Orthodox Jewish vice president in the history of the United States. Anyway, Al Gore lost, as you might remember. And Senator Lieberman came home that night. That's true. That's true, okay. Right. Okay. Okay, so you remember your history lessons from America? Somebody, Al Gore, he's responsible for global warming. He walks everywhere not to use gas. And he ran with Lieberman. Anyway, Senator Lieberman comes home that night. He feels dejected. He lost. It's not geschmack to lose the elections. And they say that his wife, Hadassah Lieberman, comes to greet him, and she sees that her husband is really downcast. He's melancholy. He's depressed. And she says, Joe, you don't have to be depressed, because in this house, you will always remain vice president. So then I realized that the Degel Machne Ephraim's, by the way, this is good. I was once giving a lecture in Florida, I think for Yehudi. You just got it? Okay. This is not a joke you have to say when you get home. I mean, you could say it, but you don't have to say it in my name. Nicht alles darf man Ibbe sagen. So, somebody just sent me a clip. It was very, very funny. I couldn't understand it really because my mother-in-law's a tzaddikus, but I still laughed because a little bit I understood it. So there's this guy traveling on the highway, probably the FDR, and he's going very, very fast, or the Palisades, and the policeman calls him, pulls him over, and the policeman says, do you know why I pulled you over? And he says, of course. But can I speak to you privately? I need to get out of the car. He says, sure. Comes out of the car. He says, let's go to the back. And he asks the policeman, he says, did you see that there's 2 women in the car? Policeman says, yeah. He says, do you know who they are? He says, no. One is my wife and one is my mother-in-law. Now, my mother-in-law has been living with us. But thank God, she and my wife, her daughter, got into a crazy fight today. And she said, take me home now. I'm done. Take me home. So I am now taking my mother-in-law back to her house. Now, I am frightened that in this journey, she's going to make up with my wife. And if she makes up with her, she's going to go back to our home for another 6 months. So I need a speed as fast as possible. I'm going 160 miles per hour because this is an urgent situation. I need to get her home before these two women make up. The policeman looks at him and says, okay, I'm going to call in for a police escort. You're going to be able to go as fast as you want. We're going to surround you. You can take every light because this is really a national emergency. So you'll be able to get home. The bottom line is, it's in the relationships in our home where we learn to be real, to be authentic. There's the facade I can face, I can show the world. Cherish your vulnerability. Cherish your lower moments. Cherish your downers, because that's where you learn most about who you are and what your spiritual mission is. And this is what this boy understood. It's Reya, Ru'us, when I can embrace my brokenness without shame, without guilt. I can then develop real friendships. I can develop real Reyus, real Reya. When I'm smug and haughty and arrogant, I can't be a real friend because it's not real. I'm impressing you, you're impressing me. I'm wearing a mask, you're wearing a mask. We can't experience each other's heartbeat. And I think it's the gift of so many people who were challenged by the creator of the world with so many physical disabilities. Many of them didn't learn how to develop these masks that so many of us develop so effectively, successfully. And therefore their vulnerability and purity and authenticity is so easily discernible. It's all over their face. It's all over their body. There's no dissonance, there's no schism, there's no split. There's no pnimius and chitzonius, the inner and the outer. There's no inner self and outer self, the self that I know about or I don't even know about because I repress, and the self that I want other people to know about. It's so, so powerful. Rayim. Or to quote that boy, I'm imperfect, so are you. I have forgiven you. Can you forgive me? Can you embrace my imperfection? I realize we can only embrace other people's imperfections when we can embrace our own. If I'm busy denying my own imperfections, I'll be busy denying yours. I can't make space for it. I can't hold space for it. I can't have empathy for it. I can only be a Reya, a true friend, when I can hold space for my imperfections. And what does it mean to be a true friend? Rabbi Yitzchak Varker said, in Chumash we have a lot of relationships. We have brothers, we have parents, children, grandchildren, teachers, mentors. We only have one friend in the whole Chumash. You know that? One person is defined as a friend. Yehuda has a friend in Parshas Vayeshev. Rayim, Re'ehu ha'adulami u'shmai chira. Rabbi Yitzchak Varker says, why? Why is like that the only depiction of friendship? It actually, the Torah calls Yisro Moshe's friend, but he was his father-in-law, so he wasn't just his friend. But there's only one relationship of friendship in the whole Chumash. It's fascinating. Yehuda had a friend by the name of Chira. And what's the story there? It's very interesting. Rabbi Yitzchak Varker says this. You know what the story is? Yehuda goes to Tamar, and then he gives Chira the sheep to be able to give to Tamar, because that was the price. And he can't find it. And Yehuda says, you know what? This is going to get so embarrassing. Let's give her the sheep and get back the collateral, because Yehuda gave her his staff and his seal and his belt. Give her the sheep and get back the collateral. And he can't find her. So Yehuda says, you know what, forget this Peniel of us. This is going to get very, very embarrassing. Let her keep the collateral and we'll have the sheep. And of course, Tamar's brilliance, it's that collateral that shows Yehuda the true story. Peretz is his child. Zerach is his child. So Rabbi Yitzchak Varka says, so what's a friend? A friend is somebody with whom you can share the most vulnerable, embarrassing parts about yourself. That's what a friend is, Re'ehu. That's really what Re'ehu is. It's really the recognition of the human brokenness, of our authenticity, of our vulnerability. And the fact that each and every one of you represents that type of friend to all of the people that you service, directly or indirectly, to the parents of kids with disabilities, to people with disabilities, to the companies and organizations that deal with the people with inabilities. It's that ability to be able to show that authentic love and friendship and sensitivity that makes all the difference. I want to share something with you. I saw it a number of years ago. It was the New Yorker magazine. They interviewed a fellow named Dr. Jerome Mattei. I actually heard the story from Rabbi Shais Taub, and then I looked it up. Dr. Jerome Mattei served as a forensic psychologist for the police department of San Francisco. What was his job? Unfortunately, in San Francisco, there are many suicides. His job was to go examine the evidence and make sure there was no foul play. After a full career, he was already older and retired. He already died a number of years ago. They interviewed him about his life in the New Yorker. They asked him if any story shocked him. Did he ever get shaken up? And he said, unfortunately, when you're doing this for years, you get used to it. Did anything shock you? He said once. Once he was overwhelmed, and he shared this story. He got a call from the police department in San Francisco that somebody jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge, which unfortunately is a very popular destination for people who want to take their lives. They jump from the bridge. It's usually, not always, but it's a pretty certain death, although there was somebody who survived a while ago. He gets a call from the police. Somebody jumped to his death. His job, forensic psychologist, he needs to go to the apartment, check out the environment, see the evidence, and make sure there was nothing else going on. It was really somebody taking his own life, and there was no crime. So he does that. Very predictable, unfortunately a very common job for him. He gets the address, he goes into the apartment. A man in his 30s, lived alone, middle-class building, middle-class apartment, comfortable, normal. And you go in, you look around, you see if somebody broke in, the doors, the windows, what was moved. Just, you look at everything. This is what he was trained for. He comes in, everything seems neat, no foul play. And then he notices on the dresser in the dining room, there's a note, which is not uncommon, because very often, before people do this, very often they leave notes. They leave letters or messages. So he was expecting one of these notes, and then he takes the note and he looks at it. And he said, and when I read it, I felt like a dagger in my chest. This is what the man wrote. I am walking now from my house. I am about to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge in order to jump to my death. However, this walk takes around 30 minutes. If one person on the way will greet me, say hi, and smile to me, I'm going to go back home. And Dr. Jerome Mattei said, and then I realized, he walked for 30 minutes, a very busy city. Nobody said hi, and nobody smiled. And he jumped. And he said, I thought to myself, if I would have been one of the people that he walked by during those 30 minutes, would have I been different? I also would have been busy. I may have also been on my phone, texting. I may have also been occupied. I also have my problems. What's my job? To tell everybody hi because you're walking down the street? I'll tell you a personal story. This was very funny. Some of you live in Brooklyn. Not all of you, but some of you live in Brooklyn. Brooklyn has a reputation, which New York has. People are sometimes uptight, stressed, busy, and anxious. Like somebody once said, he got a ticket driving in Manhattan 50 miles per hour, but it said on the ticket, you're getting a ticket for double parking. Okay. Or somebody said, that was a joke. Somebody said, you didn't get it, it's fine. In Monroe, it doesn't work that way. In Muncie, not. Somebody said, oh, you just got it. Okay, no problem. It's fine. It's been a long morning. You can explain it to your friend. It's part of V'ahavta l'reacha kamaycha. Explain jokes to your friends. But somebody once said the serenity prayer in New York is, God, give me patience and give it to me now. So I was once walking. It was Shabbos afternoon. I was in Brooklyn, where I grew up. Today I live in Monsey. And I see two people, and I realize they're not from the community. And I don't know, I just have a custom that if I'm conscious and I'm not absent-minded and I'm present, I say hi to people. And I see these two guys walking, and I'm walking behind them, and I'm walking a little faster, and I go over to them and I say, hi, welcome to the community. I was also a guest, actually. Good Shabbos, how are you? And I see they're both astounded. So I asked them, what just happened? And they said, we just had an argument. If anybody is going to say hi to us in this community. One of us said, no, there's no chance. Nobody even knows you exist. And the other one said, don't be so pessimistic. And right after that, I said hi, because I learned it from this story and other stories. And he said, I realized what happened at that moment. And then I understood another story. Of course, it was Jews. Everything is another story. Which story? Yosef. Yosef is in prison in Parshas Vayeshev. And the Torah tells a story. One morning he came in and he saw Paro's butler and baker, Vihinam Zoyafim. You know what Zoyafim means? Azoyedin Punim. Alle weißen, was meint Azoyedin Punim? How do you say that in English? He sees two non-Jews, ministers of Paro, and they look down, depressed, melancholy, dejected, anxious, stressed. Now, if you were Chas v'Shalom, or I was in a prison cell for 10 years, in a bur, in some pit in Egypt, I'm there from the age of 18 till 30. But at this point, I'm 28, 10 years without a father, without a mother, without brothers. In fact, my brothers are responsible for this. And I see two non-Jews, who probably don't like me anyway, because they work for Paro. And they're depressed. What would I do? What would you say? Huh? Exactly. They're depressed. Of course. First of all, they're on death row. Okay. Second of all, they're in prison. I'm also depressed. And do I really care? Yosef decides to ask them a question. And the question consists of 4 words. Madua pneichem Rayim hayom. What happened, guys? Why do you look down? Why are you depressed? And they tell him, we had a dream. It's always about a dream. Everybody has a dream. And Yosef says, share the dream. And he explains to them the dream. And when the butler goes free a few days later, Yosef says, remember, don't forget me. And it takes years. When Pari has a dream, the man remembers and he talks about Yosef, and Yosef is summoned. He becomes the prime minister of Egypt. The rest is history. He saves the world and the Jewish family from hunger. Think about it. He had the serenity. He was in a parasympathetic state. His nervous system was in such a parasympathetic state that he could see two people who weren't even from his faith or people and say, why are you depressed in prison? First of all, it means that he was in a pretty good place and that he cared and he helped them. And because of that, we're here today. Because of that, he was summoned to Paro. We're all here today because one Jewish kid in prison decided to ask two people in the morning, why do you look depressed? Now, I see people often in the morning, they always look depressed. You come into shul, 6, 7 in the morning. What do you think most people look like? I don't even think of asking him why he's depressed. First of all, he didn't have coffee yet. He didn't have his vitamins. He didn't go to therapy. He didn't go to the gym. He didn't deal with his stuff. Okay, his wife didn't tell him what to look like. He's still not, whatever. Of course he's mad, he's angry. You don't ask questions like just stay away and do your thing. And that's even in shul or in yeshiva. Yosef is in prison. He's like, Madua pneichem Rayim hayom. What Jerome Mattei learned in San Francisco, Yosef taught us 3,600 years ago. I say this to you because you deal with people who are struggling on a daily basis. A telephone with a father, with a mother. That question of Yosef was 4 words, and it changed the world. It literally changed. We would not be sitting here today 4,000 years later if not for that question. Now, can we say that everyone who asks someone in the morning, why do you look down, will save the world like Yosef? Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't see it, sometimes we see it right away, sometimes we see it only years later. But it has an impact beyond what anybody imagines. Yosef would have never imagined that question not only saved him, it saved his family. It saved the entire Egypt, the entire Canaan from a devastating hunger, because that's how Parai found out about it. That's why he became the prime minister of Egypt. From one question, Madua pneichem rayim ayam. So think the impact of your question. When you're on the phone with that mother, when you're on the phone with that agency, when you're on the phone with this individual, whoever it may be, going through a hard day, going through a struggle, whatever that struggle may be. Understand that avodas hakodesh. You may look at yourself, I'm a secretary. I'm a good secretary trying to do secretarial work with loyalty and consistency. And it's true. But there's always much more than what meets the eye. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I had a WhatsApp conversation with a Jew living in Israel. And I just want to tell you that this story taught me so much. It was so powerful that I decided I do my Hanukkah videos that I have to turn it into a Hanukkah story. This is a Jew who lives in the south of Israel. His name is Eliasaf Maria. Eliasaf Maria, a fine, humble Yid, a really fine person. What does he do for a profession, as a vocation? He's a tzoveya. He's a painter. A farber in Yiddish. A farber. A painter, a dyer. He dyes. You know, in the south, Hamas sent 20, 30,000 rockets. So if you're living there, you have between 5 and 20 seconds to find shelter when the sirens go off, because the rockets come over and they could fall and chas v'shalom. So they built bomb shelters almost on every block. So anybody walking, they have 5, 10 seconds, 20 seconds to run into a bomb shelter. Now these bomb shelters look very depressing. They're gloomy. They're, concrete. So a mother and children are there for an hour until it's safe, and it's very hard. So what did Eliasaf do? He painted each one with colorful pictures, so that when the kids are there, mothers are there, fathers are there, for a half an hour, 20 minutes, an hour, at least there should be some geschmacke vibe. There should be some colorful vibe. Remind them that there's a world out there that's more lively and joyous as the rockets are falling all around them. And he painted each one with a different color and with a different personality, with a different murals. One he has a girl chasing butterflies, and one is a beautiful mountain and a majestic animal and a breathtaking sunset and a beautiful sunrise and an exquisite landscape and a majestic beast. Whatever it is, just kids laughing, a girl laughing, a boy laughing. Each one a different painting, a different mural. He took his palette and his brush and he went from shelter to shelter dyeing it. That would have been the end of the story, and everybody loved Eliasaf and thought he was a really nice guy. But the story had a continuation. October 7th comes, that Simchas Torah, Tavshin Pei Gimel, October 7th, 2023. 6:15 a.m., 3,000 rockets come in from the Hamas in Gaza. And everybody runs in to a bomb shelter, and anyone in that area ran into a bomb shelter. There was a music festival, thousands of people, they all ran into bomb shelters. They didn't know that a few minutes later, 6,000 terrorists will come in and start performing a mini Holocaust. Hashem Yinkem Damam. Eliasaf shared this with me. The next morning, he starts receiving urgent WhatsApps. From whom? The police, family members, and relatives. Their relatives sent them a message. They are hiding in a bomb shelter. Please rescue us. The relatives say, what's the address? They say, we don't know. Is there any identifying sign? Sure, we can tell you the picture that's painted on the wall. He sent me some of the messages. They took pictures of the pictures and they WhatsApped it to their friends, relatives, or police. They're asking Eliasaf, can you help us locate these people? There's no address. Eliasaf knew the location of each one of these shelters because he knew which picture he painted on each one. so he could direct every single one of them to the right bomb shelter. When they came there, some of them were not here anymore, some of them were saved, but all of them and their families can get all of their belongings. They knew exactly where everyone was. And then I realized, if you would have asked Eliasaf, October 6th, what do you do for a living? He would have said, I'm just a painter. I'm a simple painter. 2 days later, he realized that he was a saver of lives. He helped so many people. And then I realized something else. Most people don't know what they're doing. I think I'm a painter, that's what I am. Yosef is just asking a simple question. Hey guys, why are you depressed? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's a nice guy. He doesn't know that at that moment, he's saving the entire world from hunger. And then I realized something else. The Mishnah says in Sanhedrin that every person ought to say, from me the world was created. We sometimes think it's a little bit of an exaggeration. I'm just a regular, simple man or woman. I mean, I'm trying to be nice, but for me the world was created. But then I realized, think about Eliasaf. You know, if the police or the relatives or the friends would have called anybody besides Eliasaf, they could have called the head of the police, they could have called the head of Shabak, the head of the Mossad, the head of Amman, the chief of staff, the defense minister, the prime minister, any general or commander. Nobody would be able to help them. There was only one man who could save the day. He was the only one who knew where each shelter was because he did the murals. I said, there was something only he can achieve, nobody else could. I said, that's what Chazal mean when they say, Chayav kol echad loima b'shvili nivra olam. There's something that only you, me, him or her can accomplish in this world that nobody before you or afterwards in history can accomplish. Not because I'm the greatest person who ever lived, but because when you were born, Hashem gives you a mission and you are an indispensable note in the cosmic symphony, and there's something at stake in the universe that only you can achieve through your life, through your presence, through your palette and brush, through the colors and the pictures that you create, through your words and thoughts and actions on a daily basis. But he could have never guessed this. He could have never known this. Just like Yosef HaTzadik could have never known this. The heart that you put into the relationships, to the work in Rayim, the empathy, the presence, the smile, the love, the presence of mind, the ability to hold space for people's pain, for people's anguish. I grew up in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. One of my memories as a child was, this is of course before the days of computers, before the days of fax machines, and certainly before the days of the World Wide Web and the internet, which officially emerges in 1994. This is 20 years before that, or 15 years before that. And I still remember the mailman coming every day, besides Sunday, to 770 Eastern Parkway, where the Lubavitcher Rebbe was, delivering mail. And it was, for a kid, it was such a sight. Because everybody, you get 10 envelopes, 20 envelopes, 30 envelopes. If you're really in debt, 40 envelopes. If you're bankrupt, 50 envelopes. Right? Fine. But the Rebbe, he would come with sacks, literally huge sacks, which I never saw before or after. Each one had like 200 letters, and he came like with 3 or 4 of them every single day, including Shabbos, and would deliver them. So it was around, I would say, between 300 and 600 letters. That's what it seemed to me as a child from those sacks, and I don't think I'm exaggerating at all. Maybe even more, but certainly a few hundred letters every day. Now, I knew from his secretaries, the Rebbe had a custom. He did not allow his secretaries or gabayim or shamashim to open the letters because most of them were confidential. He didn't want they should have access, so he opened every letter himself. Now, I don't know if you ever tried opening 600 letters a day, and that's just one little responsibility of many, many other responsibilities. He carried a world on his shoulders, and he's opening every letter himself and answering them. So one of his chassidim, who I happen to know, his name is Reb Zalman Chanan, he lives on Montgomery Street in Brooklyn, decides to do something that nobody thought of. What did he go? He goes to the store and he buys an envelope opener. Today, not many people use envelopes so much, but in those days, it was very useful. You put the envelope into the opener, boom, 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 opens a machine, a mechaya. You're not opening it, you don't get scratched, your finger is not working 600 times to open a letter and it gets stuck and it gets scratched and you're bleeding. An envelope opener. Reb Zalman says that the Rebbe got it, he thanked him, and he returned it. He said it makes too much noise. It makes too much noise. So he went, and he searched for a silent model. He calls up the company, no, they don't have. Anything, with the right amount of money, they found it was an old model that went out of stock, and he found it. And he was so happy, and he delivers this to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, so he'll have a silent envelope opener. Lo and behold, the Rebbe returns it. I guess the Rebbe felt that he owed an explanation. So he told his secretary, his name was Rabbi Klein, Olav Shalom, to tell him. And he said as follows. I get emotional when I say this. He said, when people send a letter to me, they seal their envelope. Different people seal their envelopes in different ways. Some people seal their envelopes with their saliva, with their spit. Some people seal their envelopes with glue, with a stapler, with scotch tape. There are those who seal their envelopes with their tears. How can I open with a machine that which a Jew sealed with his tears? If I put the envelope into the machine won't pick up the tears. The machine will just tear the envelope. I open it with my fingers, I can absorb the tears. And there was a message here. I don't start reading the letter when I start reading the letter. I start reading the letter when I open the envelope. The Jew sealed this envelope with his heart, with his neshama, with his anguish. You don't give that to a machine. That ability to be able to hold space for someone's tears. We don't always have solutions for people's tears. We don't have solutions for many of the tears of people. But I can hold space for it. I can open the envelope with my fingers. I can absorb it. I can look at it. I don't have to run away from it. I can be part of Rayim. I can have empathy for the brokenness and therefore mold a real friendship, a real powerful relationship, a real authentic and profound experience. You know, my deepest friend, my friends, I'm thinking about this event. And everybody grew up with a famous story. It's a story we grew up with, and when you get older, you start revisiting the stories as children, that we heard as children, and it sometimes becomes very perplexing. Everybody knows this story, and it's actually going to be read next week, Parsha Shmos. Moshe is a little baby. He's in a basket. His mother put him into the Nile to save him maybe from the Egyptians, hopefully. If he stays home, he will for sure be killed and drown. And we all know the story. The daughter of Parai, her name is Batya, comes to the Nile, and she sees a little basket, and she wonders about it. And what does she do? Vatishlach es amasa vatikacheyo. She sends out amasa. Amasa is an interesting word. It doesn't say shivchasa. It doesn't say her maid. It says amasa. So Chazal, the Gemara says in Maseches Saita, amasa actually refers to her hand. So why did it say amasa, not yada? Shenishtarveva yada amois harbe. Because her arm extended many, many feet. She couldn't reach the basket. It was in the water. It floated away. So she couldn't reach it. So she extended her hand, and her arm extends 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, until she reaches the basket, retrieves it, she opens it up. Vehine nar boicha. There's a baby sobbing. Moshe is 3 months old, and she says, Miyalde ha'ivrim, this must be a Jewish kid. We put their kid in the river. And of course, she takes him home and raises him, even gives him his name, Moshe min hamayim mishisihu. And he grows up as her son. She is the mother who adopted him. And when I read this story, and I thought to myself, like, people know this medrash very well, this Gemara, you know. She was there, she stretched out her arm, and her arm extended 100 feet, 200 feet. But the story itself is so beautiful. Like, why do the sages need to put in this miracle story about her arm extending? Like just the story itself was an amazing story. She sent Amasa. You don't know what Amasa means. Maybe it means her maid. Maybe it means she sent out her hand. And why did the Chazal need to create this whole story about her arm extended? But I want to ask another question. If you went to the Nile, okay, anybody of us went to the Nile, for whatever reason, we're spending the day on the beach with a pina colada, with a nice book, whatever it is. And then you see a basket, and you're curious, and you extend your arm, and suddenly your arm extends 100 feet. What would you do? Scream. What else would you do? Pull back, run away, 911, Hatzalah, Chaverim, Misaskim, Shaimrim, Mizamrim, Shira, Kehila. I'm out. I'm out of here. I'm not hanging around these ghosts. I would get pretty freaked out. It's pretty creepy and queasy, forgive me. And I would run for my life because my arm never extended 100 feet or even 2 feet. It's such a strange story. And again, people read the Medrash, they don't understand. We have an immature perspective on Medrash. Let's put in some interesting story to spice it up. It's a good story. It doesn't say in Chumash. If it says, it says. The sea split. It doesn't say her arm extended. Why do we have to do this to our stories? Reb Simcha Binim of Pshischa said something amazing. Rabbi David Foreman explained it beautifully as well. People don't understand Medrash. They think Medrash is, some super duper looper cute stories to entertain 5-year-olds. It's not. What harmony does to music, to a song, Medrash does to the text of Chumash. You could sit down by the piano. You remember all of us when we were 6 years old, you sat down at the piano. Da, 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 da. You remember? Your daughter still does it, no? Or da, 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 man, da, on the pony. You actually played the notes and you did the tune right, but we're not taking you to Carnegie Hall tomorrow. And then somebody else sits down at the piano. What's the difference? The harmony. It wasn't just the note itself, it was the full resonance. Medrash to the text of Chumash is what harmony does to the niggin, to the melody. You could read the story. Batya goes out, she extends her arm, she takes the basket, takes the boy, goes home. Nice story. The Medrash says, do you hear the harmony in the story? And I want to show you how this works because first of all, it's beautiful, it's sweet, but it's also so profound and it's such a message for life. When it says her arm extended 100 feet, as the Maharal often explains, it doesn't necessarily have to mean literal, it means something much deeper than that. Here's a question. If you are the daughter of Parai, and you go out to the river and you see a little basket, and you're curious because you suspect there's something special there, and then you find there's a little boy, and you decide to take him home, and you ask any normal friend if that's good advice, what would they tell you? Bistoit meshige. Okay, just imagine Hitler's daughter, finding a little Jewish baby in a ghetto, saying, you know what? I'm taking him home to raise him by my father, Adolf Hitler. What would you tell this girl? Bistoit meshige. Stalin's daughter, finding a little Jewish boy, and I'm going to bring him to Stalin, and we're going to grow up together. You're crazy. Your father, Stalin, and Hitler will shoot the boy and shoot you. These are Jew haters. Parai was a Haman. He was a Hitler. He was the first man who wanted genocide of every single Jew. He wanted every baby drowned, every male baby drowned. Don't bring him home to Parai's house. You're crazy. You're a nice, innocent girl. But don't do this. Your goal is unreachable. You're extending your arm. My arm can reach how far? A foot? Maybe a foot and a half? If I'm athletic, maybe 2 feet? But if you ask me to get my arm and reach something that's 200 feet away or 2,000 feet away or 20,000 feet away. You can do it. There are goals that are reachable. There are goals that are unreachable. There are goals that are attainable in life. There are goals that are unattainable in life. Don't be stupid. It's like I'll decide that I'm going to lose 70 pounds by tomorrow afternoon. You know those types of goals? And you know how they turn out, right? If I could eat one Danish less till tomorrow afternoon, it's schon ganz good. And if I could lose a pound over the next, I don't know how long, whatever, is euch ganz good. No. What they said, the Satmar Rebbe once said, kids today, they want to learn Shas in one night, but that night they also want to have a good night's sleep. There's goals that are achievable. There's goals that are not achievable. You have to know. So if anybody would have come to Batya, and Batya would have asked them, I think there's a baby there. I'm suspecting a Jewish baby there. I want to bring him. I want to save him. You know where I want to raise him? In my papa's house. What would you tell her? I say, Batya, you need help. You need help. You are insane. You're crazy. Think about other things. Maybe get somebody else to deal with this. This is not for you. Trust me. We know your father. And what should have Batya done? Look the other way. And that would have been fine. Look the other way. What did she do? She said, no, I'm going to reach. I'm going to reach for this goal. I want to save this boy. And what happens? At that moment, when she extends her arm, what happens? The Rebbeinu Shalayla also has an arm. And his arm is very long because he's infinite. And he connects his invisible arm to her visible arm. And her arm reaches to a place that she on her own could never reach. Because what happens? She brings home this boy and he survives. How do I know he survives? I'm here today to tell the story. Moshe is the one who made us a people. He liberated us. He molded us. He gave us the Torah. He led us. The boy survived in inconceivable circumstances. It didn't make sense. She got it done. How? Because I have an arm. My arm is limited. But when I extend my arm and I say I'm going to do something, it can't happen. It won't be successful. Extend your arm. There's another arm that is much longer and it joins our arms. And then I understood, we always say, this is the common expression of our sages. Avadim hayinu lefari b'Mitzrayim vayotzienu Hashem Elokeinu misham biyad chazaka uvizroya netuya. You remember the Yiddish and Beis Ruchel, how they translated that? Mit a starke Hand und mit an ausgestreckten Ohren. Did I say that right? I wasn't in Beis Ruchel, but I still know. Mit an ausgestreckten Ohren. Is that how they do it in Hungarian Yiddish? Because I do like Litvish, Ukrainian Yiddish, so I'm like different a little. Also sagt man, an ausgestreckten Ohren. Okay, I can become a teacher in Satmar soon. Ohren. Oh, Urim. Oh, Urim is put. Urim. Oh, so that's like, okay, so that's like the Kalta Litvaks. Okay, so that's good. Urim. Why? I understand Hashem took us out with a strong hand and with a stretched out arm. Urim, by the way, an arm. Urim comes from arm, or arm comes from Urim. But why is that relevant? I mean, he took us out. He took us out with his, Hashem. Because that's the story. You know what the Zroya Netuya is? You know whose Zroya Netuya it was? Batya's Zroya Netuya. He took us out because there was a young woman who wasn't afraid to stretch out her arm when the whole world looked at her and said, you're ridiculous, you're crazy, you're insane, you're stupid, you're immature, you're naive, you're absent-minded, you're aloof, you're not living in the world. Bist a fantasier. You're a fantasizer, you're a dreamer, you're not realistic. It was her arm, Bizroya Netuya. Hashem aligned his arm with her arm, and the miracle happened. And I want to tell you something. Throughout history, any great thing that ever happened was a person who stretched out their arm, and some people said, "You're really stupid. This is unattainable. This is not achievable. Your arm is limited. Go do something much smaller." People have ambitions, but then they doubt themselves. A person says, "You think I'm capable of building an amazing marriage, of building an amazing relationship with my children? You think I'm capable of real healing and recovery? You think I'm really capable of living a deep relationship with Hashem? You think I'm really capable of changing the world, of lighting up the world?" In fact, when Rayim was founded in 2003, I don't think anybody imagined when that first arm was extended that it would reach the place where it is today, with a budget of $150 million a year, helping thousands and thousands and thousands of people with disabilities and other organizations looking at it and saying, "What's your secret?" When Mr. and Mrs. Krause and their incredible team, and by the way, one of the unique couples that work together day in and day out, usually they tell husbands and wives, "Don't work together. It's enough at night. It's enough at night. Man sitzt nicht auf der Kupp, einer auf der andere 24 Stunden a Tag. Not good for shalom bayis." And sometimes that's true. But one of the miracles of Rayim is that sie sitzen einer der andere auf dem Kupp 24 Stunden, ich weiß nicht wie viele Jahren, a sach Jahren, und man kippt noch halt zurück zu der Arbeit, jeden Tag. That's another miracle of Rayim. I guess there's some good friendship over there. You got to give us lessons. But that's what people say. You're a dreamer. And the same is true in your life and in your work. Sometimes we think, what's the point? What's the purpose? What am I going to achieve? What am I going to accomplish? Learn from Batya. Extend your arm, because you never know who that arm will touch and how far it will reach. You never know. I just got regards. There was a Shabbaton from an organization called Ray of Hope. Ray of Hope is for young women who experience difficult childhoods in one particular sense. They were abused in very, very inappropriate ways. I'm not going to elaborate here. And they had a Shabbaton the first time. So one of the women shared something with another woman who comes to my classes, so she shared it with my wife. My wife told it to me today. She said, "I want you to know I was once listening to your husband's class, my class, and he went off tangent completely. And then he said, I don't know why I just went off tangent. Like, why am I changing the subject?" And I was speaking about dealing with these types of pains. And then I said, maybe somebody had to hear it. Maybe somebody, and this woman says that she was considering to take her life. That's how much pain she had. And then she heard this, and it gave her a new hope. And she's here today because of that. And then I realized that in life, we can only show up with the skills we have as shluchim of the Ribbono Shel Olam. And stretch out my arm. That's all I can do. And that's all I have to do. But stretch out the arm. Don't surrender to naysayers and cynics and skeptics. And if the arm needs to be extended, it will be extended. Then I understood something else. Batya didn't only do it for herself. She taught Moshe how to live. Because what happens years later, Vayigdal Moshe, Vayetzei el Echav. He goes out to his brothers the first time. And what does he see? An Egyptian beating a Jew to death. Now stop for a moment. If you were Moshe, you're an Egyptian prince, you're the stepson of Batya, you're the step-grandson of Parai. That means you may be the next king. You have a good future. And you see here an Egyptian beating a Jew. What do you think? What should I do? If you kill the Egyptian, what's going to happen? Parai is going to hear about it, and he's like, my grandson is killing Egyptians, he's defending Jews? You got to be crazy. What should have Moshe thought? Doesn't make sense to kill the Egyptian. I'm going to get killed. That's what happens. Paro wants to kill him. He has to run away to Midian. I have a better idea. Be quiet. Make believe you don't care. Build yourself up in the palace. One day, you'll become a powerful person, and then you'll help many more Jews. You're a shaita, l'cha'ira, chas v'shalom. You're giving yourself away. You're going to become a fugitive. Moshe, you have a future. You'll be the next Paro. You're a brilliant kid. You'll become the king one day. You'll liberate all the Jews. Don't save one Jew. Maybe for a few weeks he'll be alive. It's a joke. Doesn't that make sense what I'm saying? Makes a lot of sense. You never thought about that. Makes much more sense. Moshe, long-term vision. But Moshe knew the story with his stepmother. She also couldn't do it. It was an unattainable goal. You're doing something that's ridiculous. Moshe says to himself, there's a Jew now who's going to be beaten to death. Will I be quiet or will I save him? I cannot be quiet. He saves the Jew and he kills the Egyptian. And you know what? He loses. He has to run away. But what happens at the end? He liberates the whole people, all the people. That's the moment Hashem sees he's the man, he's the leader, he's the redeemer. And it's so true in life. Where did Moshe learn this from? Biyad chazaka ubizraya netuya from Batya. So he also extended his arm. Vayaches hamitzri vayitmeneu b'chayil. Saves the Jew and ultimately saves the entire Klal Yisrael. And this is so true in each of our lives. You know, sometimes people look at goals, they look at situations, let me be quiet. They look at injustice, they see stupidity, they sometimes even see crimes, they see negativity, but we make all these calculations. If I'm quiet, then this will happen, that will happen. Batya taught the Jewish world the ultimate lesson, and that is, if I see something, I say something, and I do something. And even if I can't do much, I can extend my arm. I could say, I care. I make a statement. And Hashem's arm, often, if need be, will join your arm. And you don't even know what will happen. And you may never even find out about it. I've learned that again and again and again. It comes with a lot of humility and a lot of vulnerability. And especially in this work in Rayim, where you're dealing constantly with people who were given many challenges in life. And often it's easy to be discouraged. It's easy to get bored. It's easy to get cynical. It's easy for it to become tedious. Let me just get through the day. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. To be able to continuously extend our arms, whatever that means, to show love, to show empathy, to give an embrace, to extend a heart, an empathetic word, a compassionate gesture, a smile, and a sincere, authentic relationship represented by Rhea, by that friend who can hold space for brokenness. That means the world. I'm going to conclude with one final insight. And then hopefully you'll have an appetite for a geschmacke lunch. And I'm not going to try to lose 70 pounds by tomorrow. If I lose 1 pound by tomorrow, it'll also be an accomplishment. I'll extend my arm. Not to take food. To take the kale. Not the rugelach, but the kale. That's what I'll extend my arm to. But I want to share this insight because I think it really summarizes your work and our work of Rayim. I mentioned before the Degel Machane Ephraim. He was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. His mother was Adul. Adul was a daughter of the Baal Shem Tov. His name was Reb Moshe Chaim Ephraim of Sedlik of Ukraine. He was 18 when the Baal Shem Tov passed away, and he has amazing teachings, including things he heard from the Baal Shem Tov himself. I saw in Parshas Vayechi something very profound that he says. And it's interesting, if you listen to Rabbi Yisrael Henech, Rabbi Krause's speech earlier, he said his own Chiddush in Vayechi, and he told it over to me. And I said, look up the Degel, because he says something very similar. I want to tell you something I saw in the Degel Machane Ephraim. I just saw it yesterday. And I saw it a few years ago, but yesterday I reviewed it. We all know the story. It says that Yaakov already was old, and he couldn't see. Eine Yisrael kavdu mizoikin lo yuchal iris. So when Yosef brings his 2 children, and he puts Menashe to the right of Yaakov and Ephraim on the left of Yaakov. He wants Yaakov to bless the older and the younger one. And Yaakov crosses his hands, Sikeles Yadov, like an X. And he puts his right hand on Ephraim, the younger one, his left hand on Menashe, the older one. And Yosef gets upset. Loi Keinavi, it's not the right way to do it. He picks up his hands, he wants to switch, and Yaakov says, no, I know everything, but this is the way to do it. And he blesses them that day. Yisimcha Elokim K'Ephraim K'Menashe. B'cha Yevarech. Every Jew who blesses his children will always say, Yisimcha Elokim K'Ephraim K'Menashe. And that's what we do till today when we bless our sons. Even though when we bless our daughters, we say Rachel, Rivka, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. With our sons, we jump to the grandkids, Ephraim, Menashe, not Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So the Egel has an amazing interpretation. And he says, you have the physical story, but you also have the story as a metaphor. Every story in Torah is also a metaphor. He says it's sometimes the same child. Ve'ene Yisrael, I'm going to say it in my words. Eine Yisrael kavdum ezoiken layochal iris. This is so apropos for 2025. It's literally prophecy. The Degel says sometimes you look at your child, layochal iris. I can't look at my child. Kid comes in dressed, not the way their mother and Baba taught them how to dress, to put it mildly. It's certainly not the way they get dressed in Monroe, or in Williamsburg, or in Muncie, or in Borough Park, or in Lakewood, or in Bnei Brak, or in Meir Sharm, or in Kia Sefer. And this is your daughter. You look at your son, or your grandson, or your neighbor's son, or your nephew. Eine Yisrael kavdu. My eyes are heavy. It's too heavy. I can't see it. I close my eyes. I don't want to see it. That's what the Degel says. And there's an instinct in me to say, you're not my child. Get out of my house. You're embarrassing the Fashemste Mishpucha. You're embarrassing the family. You're embarrassing the brand. How do you say brand in Yiddish? The brand. You're embarrassing the brand. The Elte Bubbe Feige was saved from Auschwitz. She raised 12 kids. And now you're an Einikel. This is what you're doing to her in Gan Eden? She's turning, you know the guilt that mothers put their children through. You have a little bit, you have a lot of that in Monroe, or Williamsburg, or Borough Park, or Muncie, a little bit, yeah? It's called guilt, shame. That's why we were saved. So the instinct is, you're not my child. Get out of my house. You're embarrassing. What's going to be with Shidduchim? We're supposed to be the most perfect family. We're the perfect family. And you are the one that's destroying the family. It's a problem. It's a challenge. Today, people have this challenge a lot. I deal with this a lot. And the feinste, schönste Mishpuches und Kehillas. So Degel says there's an instinct like, get out of my life. What does Yaakov do right after that? It says, Vayagesh oisam lahem. He brings them closer. Vayechabek oisam, vayenashek oisam. He embraces them and he kisses them. He knows his job is keep them close. And if you have a hard time, it means they need more closeness and more attachment. Because that's what saves everybody. Attachment. But the question is how? How do you do it? So he says, Yaakov taught Yosef a lesson. Cross your hands. The right hand on Ephraim, the left hand on Menashe. And this is what he says. What's Menashe and Ephraim? It's two parts of every child. Menashe comes from the word, as I said earlier, nashani, forgetfulness. Nashani Elokim says the Degel, it's the part of me that forgets Hashem. Ephraim comes from the word pru urevu. The Gemara says, afilu poishe Yisrael melayim mitzvahs kerimen. Even the greatest sinners of Israel are filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate with seeds. Ephraim is the part that's melayim mitzvahs. It's filled with goodness. And Menashe is the part that forgets Hashem. And the Degel says we always see Menashe first. We right away look at a child and we right away see the flaws. We right away see the problems. That's how it is. There was a professor who once showed his class a white paper, an empty white paper. There was a black dot, and he asked all the students, what do you see? And everybody said, we see a black dot. And he said, it's so interesting. 99% of the paper is white, but everybody only sees the black dot. So I look at the child, I right away see what's wrong. Menashe, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, you woke up late, you missed this, you missed that. Right away, the problems. Yaakov says, don't do it that way. Ephraim comes first. Ephraim gets the right hand. Can you see Malaya Mitzvahs Kirimin? Can you see Para Verava? Can you see all the goodness in this child? Can you see his heart? Can you see his depth? Can you see his sensitivity? Can you see his beauty? The right hand, Yamin Mekareves on Ephraim. The left weaker hand on Menashe. Focus and accentuate on the beauty, on the power, on the goodness. That's what Yaakov taught Yosef. And then you'll be able to say on them, everybody will say, I want this child. When we look at people, it's so easy to see flaws. It's so easy to see challenges. And in your work, you see people with all types of challenges all the time. And we have challenges, so many of us, different types of challenges. What Yaakov taught is, with every child, can I first tune in with my right hand, with my stronger arm, with more emphasis on how much beauty and grace and goodness. Because if I can't do that, ultimately I will not be able to be there for these children. Ultimately I will distance them more. Ultimately they will feel more abandoned. And ultimately they will find their comfort in other places, very, very far away from those who really care for them. And in all of our lives, and in your work as Rayim, to be able to look at every individual and see that individual as a gift, as a graceful divine gift. Can I look at every child and say, you are a divine gift, and if I'm not seeing it, it's because I am blocked. It's because my ego is taking over. It's because my insecurity is reigning supreme. It's because I am unworked out. I need to work on myself, Yaakov says. If I need to close my eyes because I can't look at you, because you're freaking me out, because you're queasy, because you're weird, because you're threatening me, it's my confidence and my relationship with Hashem that I need to work on. And when I could really see every child that way, which is the whole function of Rayim, to see each one, Laman Achai, Virei Adabra na Shalom Bach. Then, when I could see that, when I can accentuate that, then on each and every one of these people whom you're helping, we can all say, B'cha Yevarech Yisrael Lemer. In you, the Jewish people will invoke blessings, Yisimcha Lekim, Ke'Ephraim v'Chemenashe. May Hashem give each and every one of you the stamina, the vigor, the perspective, and the inspiration to be able to look at every soul that you're helping and see their infinite, endless grace. Thank you so much.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.